front of a mirror. Okay.
All right, so it's loading up here for us. All right, so we're live on Facebook here. I'm going to introduce my guest here shortly. Give everybody a chance here on Facebook to hop in. I've got my guest tagged all proper, so the technology is working. Woohoo! Yep, and I see it here. We're going to get this into some groups and that sort of thing, so y'all will jump on. I know how y'all are in the morning time. Sometimes y'all might get a little slowful, even though y'all at home.
Let me mute this.
Give everybody a chance here on Facebook. All right. So we've got that in, and we're going to start recording here, episode number 145, y'all. So we're moving right along in the Mind Your Business podcast. Thank y'all so much for checking this out. If you're replaying, if you're on the move, if you're an essential worker, shout out to you. If your family has been impacted in a negative standpoint from what's going on, definitely shout out and hearts go out to you as you endure unprecedented, uncertain times that we all are enduring. If you've lost your job here recently, I understand based on the Bureau of Labor statistics, there's some 22 million people right now that are out of work. And, that's unheard of and unprecedented worldwide and in a country like this, y'all. So definitely keep those in mind. If you're still fortunate to have income and to be able to work and get around, be extremely thankful. And like I said, again, we're going to make this through. So let's go ahead. We're going to get started recording the podcast, y'all, because I want to get right to my guests with no delay here. We got a lot to get into. All right. A lot to get into. So let's get ready to do that. Make sure you subscribe and listen to the podcast wherever you get your pods or at the mybpodcast.com. Make sure that you do that. And 5-star on Apple Podcasts. That helps me get the podcast to more people, because as you know, there are people beyond social media that look for great content. They're not on your social media feeds. They're not caught up in your algorithm. And so we want to make sure that gets out to as many people as possible. All right. All right, folks. And as you have questions here, even before I go live with the podcast, if you have questions, comment those. I will see them. And if they're appropriate, I will ask Pearl. All right. If they're not appropriate, then I will not ask Pearl. All right. I'll see how that
well,
works.
let's hope they're all appropriate.
Yeah. So, we hope that they are. And I believe that they are. We've got great folks here that jump in here. So I just have to make sure I give the disclaimer just in case someone hadn't had their coffee yet.
Certainly.
All right. Let's do it. All right, y'all. Welcome back. Episode 145 of the Mind Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Champ Ron. Entrepreneurship, real estate, trending news. There's no business like minding your own. So glad that you could join me today. We're recording this on a Monday morning. I know a lot's been going on. I hope that you keep the faith, keep moving, keep progressing, even if you're facing obstacles. And if you're facing, reasonably well times, be mindful that everybody is not. And let's be great citizens to our fellow man and our fellow woman that are out here. Subscribe, listen to the podcast wherever you get your pods or at the mybpodcast.com. And of course, we're brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network. Make sure you check out all the great podcasters and shows on the Binge Podcast Network, including our flagship show, the Startup Life podcast, with host Dominic Lawson and his great wife, Kendra Lawson, doing that and doing big things, growing that worldwide, as we are here with the Mind Your Business podcast. Listen, let me get right into with my guest, someone I've got great respect for. She's been on the podcast before, so she's a friend of the podcast when she was running for office. And unfortunately, that did not pan out. However, what you love about folks like this is, the work continues. And so the work was not contingent on her getting here into the local office. So for those that are listening and you're not in Memphis, my guest today is Pearl Walker, and she ran for city council seat on last year, and was not able to do that, unfortunately. However, she's continuing the fight, continuing working in the community, and that's what you love to see. So, Pearl, good morning to you, and thank you so much for joining here on the podcast.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope this is finding you doing well, safe. I'm sure you've been practicing as much as you can, the social distancing and all that type of thing. And yeah, I just hope you and your family are safe.
Yes, we are safe, and I am practicing social distancing along with some other things. Yes, thank you.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. Well, listen, let's get right in because we've got a lot to talk about because you've been busy, to say the least.
Yes.
So to update us on kind of what's going on. So last time we talked to you in episodes past, of course, you were running for office and putting together a great campaign and that sort of thing. So update us and kind of unpack where you are today and, kind of how things have progressed here over the last several months for you.
Well, it was a wonderful experience when running for city council. And some people say experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. But it was a great experience and opportunity. And since then, I have continued with my community service, community engagement. I have the I Love Whitehaven Neighborhood Association.
Yes.
So I took a long break after the election. And then in November, we did the I Love Whitehaven weekend, which is right before Thanksgiving in conjunction with the Christmas parade. And then in January, the week of the King holiday, we continued with the third annual I Love Whitehaven Restaurant Week. And it's just been a great time, a great season. I've actually received a community award for the past 4 months in December, January, February, and March. So in December, it was from Mid-South Kwanzaa. January, it was a proclamation from the city council in conjunction with the I Love Whitehaven Black Restaurant Week. In February, my high school, Fairleigh High, we're 50 years old this year, and in conjunction with that year-long celebration, I was recognized as one of its 50 distinguished alumni. And then in March, I received a proclamation from the State House in conjunction with my in conjunction with my community service, and it particularly cited my work on behalf of energy equity and energy justice. So this month is not over. Maybe something will happen this month, but
you still got time for April, Pearl.
It's a great cycle. Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, man, that's awesome. So, like I said, I know that you've been extremely busy, again, to say the least. But congratulations on your accolades and those awards. Very well deserved. For the work that people see that you do, and then even just as much so for the work that people don't see. I think sometimes that doesn't get credit because people aren't always able to see a lot of the efforts and the late nights and the connections and the doors that close, the doors that open. Some of those people aren't always privileged to always see. So definitely commend you for that.
And I appreciate that. And part of my platform when I ran for city council was energy. And so I'm still continuing with the energy work. And that's why I'm here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump right into that and unpack that some, Pearl, because I don't want to assume that everybody knows. And sometimes, terms get used and sometimes we talk about things and there's an assumption that people should already know. And I think some of the apathy sometimes comes from people just don't know. They're not informed on why they should care about something. And it's just assumed, right? And I know you're good at explaining, even through your Facebook group and your other connections, of really kind of breaking down and unpacking that. So let's do that for the audience today. Talk about your involvement with energy and why that's important.
Okay, my involvement with energy started a few years ago through a friend and colleague by the name of Sandra Upchurch, and she has been the environmental justice chair for our local NAACP chapter, and I've worked with her in that capacity. And also it allowed me to follow in the footsteps of one of my heroines in history, Cornelia Crenshaw, who was an advocate, who was an energy advocate, energy justice advocate. Thanks to the work of Ms. Crenshaw, we are allowed to make a partial payment on our utility bills. I don't know if people know that, but it was thanks to her and her advocacy. So now you can get an extension and make a partial payment thanks to her. And so in 2017, SACE, the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, they sponsored an energy workshop here. And I was a part of that. And then it just continued with other opportunities. I've traveled to Muscle Shoals, Alabama, to address the TVA board about fixed rate hikes, in addition to Atlanta for the Just Energy Conference. And that's part of the Alliance for Southern Equity. So the energy movement, clean energy, energy justice, energy equity, climate change, environment, all that that's one big family. And so the particular area that I work in is dealing with advocating and educating the community on clean energy, affordable energy, and energy equity. So I'm currently a spokesperson for the Southern Alliance of Clean Energies. Memphis has the power campaign. And what I do, in spite of the virus, is the best I can from a cyber standpoint now, is working to achieve energy justice. And a big component of that is what we're doing here today, just educating people about how to create a cleaner, more affordable energy opportunities for Memphis and beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. And I loved how, you use that term in terms of the virus. So obviously with what we're dealing with COVID-19, but often what we don't realize or recognize, Pearl, like you mentioned, is there are other viruses that we've been dealing with as a community for a lot longer that have had just as big of impact in many regards, and energy inequality is one of those. As you're having these conversations with TVA, and I want to make sure we don't miss this, walk us through that process, because a lot of people don't know. Or someone may be really young, or maybe they just don't know. MLGW, purchases its energy, right, from TVA. There's an agreement with that. Walk us through what that is, and then as you're answering that, Pearl, talk about the need for then clean energy. And what is clean energy, even as you're talking about that? So what's kind of that relationship between MLGW and TVA as you know it, and then the energy that's purchased? Why is it important for that to be clean?
It's important for it to be clean because that supports the planet, that supports our environment, that supports the planet. It's healthier, it's cheaper, and it supports energy on all levels. Energy is tied into transportation as well as health. And people don't always know, but we flip a switch, we turn on the faucet, we plug something into the wall, but we're not thinking about the back piece to that. But energy is very important. It's not a conscious, we don't use it consciously, we use it subconsciously because it is so abundant. We take it for granted. Even here in the United States, even in these times, energy is not as abundant in other places around the planet as it is here in the United States. But however, we have the options to make choices to have cleaner and affordable energy. And so that's part of the work that we do. Now, you were asking about the relationship between MLGW and TVA. So MLGW, and I'm referring to my notes here, but MLGW here is a utility. Mm-hmm. And so many people are of the mindset that we actually get the energy from MLGW, but we don't. And a utility is an organization that provides a service to a certain city or community, shall I say. And so some utilities provide only one service, that's electric or gas or water. But in the case of Memphis, we get all three. And there's nothing wrong with getting all three, from one utility. But as you mentioned earlier, in a sense, that it comes across as if they have a monopoly. You used the word monopoly earlier. So it comes across as if they have a monopoly. But yes, we get light, gas, and water from Memphis Light Gas and Water. And as it relates to their relationship with TVA, so currently we get everything from TVA. And so this agreement has been questioned in recent times in terms of, should we stay with TVA? Should we go with other options? A lot of people don't realize that TVA is not the only act in town. There are other providers that we can get this from. And so what we advocate is to the decision makers as well as the community, just know that there are other options in addition to TVA. So currently, the relationship that MLGW has with TVA is considered average by many. And if we wanted to leave TVA, we would have to give them a 5-year notice. And so what they're doing is they're trying to offer things in lieu of that so we could stay with them. But very soon, the city council and the decision makers, they will receive the results from studies. There already have been studies done that will support whether they should stay or leave TVA. And moving forward, what we want from the decision makers is whatever choices you make moving forward, you want to be mindful of clean and renewable energy sources such as solar. And in addition to that, with the solar comes job opportunities. Actually, Tennessee, most of the states in the Southeast region, because TVA covers most of the Southeast region, but there was an increase in jobs in the Southeast region in 2019 as it related to solar, but those numbers went down in Tennessee. And so TVA presents itself as being progressive and forward thinking and making good choices, but actually and I mentioned it in my blog, Tom Jones with Smart City Consulting here in Memphis, TVA only gets they only generate 19% of their power from clean and renewable sources.
Wow.
But it benefits us because it's healthier, it's cleaner, and it supports the planet. And so let's just say hypothetically this virus is because of how we have lived so irresponsibly and not been respecting Mother Nature, and she just decided to throw up on us via this virus. So having a good relationship with the planet is very important because there will be pushback. That's the big deal behind the climate change. And here in Memphis, you already know we don't have very distinct seasons. We get a little bit of winter, fall, and summer, but the seasons they cross each other. We don't have distinct seasons anymore, and that's because of the irresponsibility that we have had toward the planet and pollutions and things like that.
Yeah, and one of the things I'm glad you said that too, Pearl, because one of the things that I've mentioned, I've had conversations with people, is that there is a school of thought that human beings are also a virus. We are ourselves are a virus when in regards to the planet. And so there are times when like anything that starts harming a living organism, it fights it off. And so this may be a way to fight off another virus that has existed for many, 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 many years that we don't think of that as ourselves. We think of things that affect us as a virus, and they certainly are. But there is a school of thought, I won't get too deep into that, but there is a school of thought that we are a virus as well. And as we've multiplied across the earth, and as we have, like you say, not been the best, to say the least, in terms of how we've treated the planet, for our own capitalistic gains and that sort, and just our pure disregard. And so, yeah, I'll leave that there because I know we can get into a deep conversation on that, Pearl.
Absolutely, but I was going to roll with you. I'm here for all of it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So Memphis has the power. So with you saying that and kind of educating us on that relationship between MLGW and TVA, talk to us about the organization, how the organization came about, and what specifically the organization is doing. Again, as you mentioned, Pearl, to help us all recognize and appreciate clean energy, and then as people, which I refer to people as hiring managers. All right, and as a hiring manager, when someone comes before you that wants a job from you, you're going to evaluate what they do, and then you make the hire if they're a good fit, and then if they don't do the job, then you fire them and you put someone else in that place. And so for the those of us that are citizens, to be hiring managers with this, how we can get involved with the organization to help push the movement for clean energy, because obviously, like as you explained, Pearl, it's extremely important for all of us that are doing anything, but certainly one of the main reasons we can all work remotely and from home is because we've got access to energy.
Yeah.
You and I wouldn't be doing this podcast without it, because the internet's no good without power. Right?
Absolutely.
Your home is no good without electricity or gas. And we don't even have to get into water, right? And the importance of it, particularly clean water. So the reason we're able to do all this stuff is frankly because we've got energy. Now we just have to make sure it's affordable and clean. So talk to us about the organization.
Okay, and I'm going to touch on the affordability as well. So we have a website, memphishasthepower.org, and you can go to the website. It's user-friendly. It's very easy to use. Under resources, we have an excellent FAQ section that gives you definitely a comprehensive look at what we're talking about today. You can click on the blog tab and news, and my recent blog is on there as well as some other blogs, and it's just great information. It's written in a format where it's easy to read. Anyone can understand it. It's not too scientific. When you start talking about fossil fuel and solar and things like that, a lot of people, oh, that's kind of over my head. I really don't know what you're talking about. But we've been charged too much for power, and we're impacted by fossil fuel solution. And so TVA has neglected to meet our needs for affordable, equitable, and clean energy. But with these newer options, there's definitely a savings. And I just want to share quickly something from a study from a 2016 report, Lifting the High Energy Burden in America's Largest Cities, from the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy. And I'll be quick here, but this report, they took a look at 48 states around the country, 48 metro areas around the country, one of which was Memphis. And they wanted to see how much people were paying for electric, gas, and other heating fuel in relation to their household income. Now, what you have is something called an energy burden. Memphis has the highest energy burden in the country because of the extreme poverty here. And what this study, AC, that's the acronym is ACEEE, they found that in these major metro areas where they did the study, out of the 48, Memphians, we pay the highest percentage of our household incomes for energy in the nation. So that's what an energy burden is. That's the percentage of your household income that you pay for utilities. Now, the national average per this study is 6.2% on average, but here in Memphis, it's as high as 26%. So 6 versus 26, that's over 3 times as much. And then unfortunately, people who are poor tend to, and elderly, they tend to live in dwellings that are not as fuel efficient, which compounds that even more. So a lot of people are paying more for utilities because the property is not insulated. There could be a leak with the hot water tank that they're not aware of, and things like that. And I know you know about energy as it relates to real estate.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Pearl, we did many episodes ago, we did a series called Memphis Burning, where we talked about the inequalities with real estate and how that was used to ultimately shape what we have here today in Memphis. And you hit the nail on the head exactly that there are properties that are completely inefficient and they haven't been updated. And like you mentioned, sometimes low to moderate income people, either they're not aware of or they don't just have the means to be able to make that economic choice between other things that are more pressing and then updating their house to be more energy efficient. Yeah, as far as with energy efficient appliances and systems, as you mentioned, window seals, doors, fixing leaks and cracks and crevices and things like that. So you're exactly right. There's the inequality of that that exists along with with clean energy. So they have to work in tandem. I agree. And so that it's interesting that the parallels with that because many here in Memphis, as you mentioned, just don't have the living quarters or facilities that's in place to help reduce their cost. And when what blew my mind is when you said up to 26% of your income, so you're talking about a fourth of your income going just to energy. That's asinine, and that should not exist in 2020. Nobody's a quarter of someone's income on a monthly basis should not go to energy.
And also, so there have been multiple studies that support MLGW leaving TVA and about the money that could be saved, which would be passed on to us via our monthly utility bill. But they're waiting on, MLGW is yet waiting on another study, but there have been multiple studies already that have shown if MLGW breaks away from TVA to another energy provider, the savings of Memphis would be hundreds of millions of dollars per year for the city of Memphis. And if I may share a quote with you from Herman Morris, who is our former president of MLGW, he recently said that TVA's wholesale power cost about 7.5 to 8 cents per kilowatt, while an alternate supplier of energy would just cost 4 to 4.5 cents per kilowatt. So that's that's almost half. That's pretty much half. And the lower rate has the potential the lower rate will translate to us. It has the potential to translate to us. And so it would be more affordable to go with another provider that is gonna support clean and renewable energy options.
Yeah, absolutely. And Pearl, you mentioned about solar. So what is the delay in your opinion, or from your research and your fact data, if you've got that, what is the delay with solar? We've heard solar for decades now. And, you would think that, like you say, if you're an organization, even like MLGW as a utility or TVA, if you're reducing those costs by going to solar, which is, like you say, cleaner, over a long run, I understand the upfront cost of doing that. You've got a lot of households in Shelby County that you'd have to upgrade. But to me, I guess, walk me through how do you understand that to be, such an issue to go to solar energy?
Well, it's an issue because choices and decisions are made to make it be an issue, but we can have solar. Actually, earlier when I referred to the solar movement and climate change and environment, there are a lot of people on board with this nationwide as well as worldwide. And so one of the questions that those of us in this area, we constantly get is, why isn't Memphis doing more with solar? And so it comes down to choices and decisions being made. But as I referred to earlier, Tennessee, TVA blocked growth of solar jobs last year, and they say that they're committed to solar. While solar jobs increased in most of the states in the Southeast, the solar job census, they revealed that Tennessee had lost all these jobs last year.
Yeah.
And states around us are doing more with solar. So I don't know of anything that's keeping us from moving forward with solar other than the choices have not been made, the actions have not taken place to do so. Because once again, when you look at the energy movement nationwide, people are looking at Memphis and want to know, why aren't we doing more with solar? Actually, because of Memphis sitting on the bluff next to the river, its proximity to the river on the bluff, facing west, the river being on the west side of Memphis. That puts us in a position where we are ranked 25th in the nation for our solar potential. And you think of all the cities and towns and municipalities in the United States, and we're ranking 25th. Yes, we should be doing more with solar. Now, one argument is that, let's say when the VCRs first came out and the flat screens came out, and they say the cost was higher. At first, the cost is going to be higher at first, but we just need to move on past that, because we know the cost is going to come down, and that's not necessarily true in all instances. But that's the only thing that I've heard in terms of, why we shouldn't do solar. But the price, whatever the price is in the beginning, is going to come down. That's going to translate to savings to us as well as income, because you generate the power for yourself, and what you don't use, you get to sell back to the utility.
Right, exactly. Which then, does that create then an income stream for people then, if you were able to harness and gather? Yeah.
And we could use all the income streams that are available to us,
of course,
because we have the highest energy burden because of the high poverty rate. Now, people are saying that we're number 2 in poverty, but I just don't even think the distinction is worth making. 1 or 2, that's still a lot of poverty. And so, yes, it could create revenue for the customers, for the utility customers.
Yeah. So then that sounds like, obviously, Pearl, that's a big reason why, MLGW or TVA or anybody else would be against it, would be ultimately it puts power, as you said, Memphis has the power, that puts the power in the hands of the people then, because now they're individual entrepreneurs, just in the sense that they're able to then dictate that means of production with their energy. And if they, for whatever reason, depending on whatever the factors are, they're able to harness a lot of extra energy, they could sell it back to, like, say, the utility, and or get, figure out a way to sell it to them and trade and barter it amongst themselves, and take out the utility as almost as a middleman, so to speak. And I think that may be seen as a threat, but it's still something that we need to push for, because again, Memphis has the power, and that power needs to be in the hands of the people. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to educate, and I thank you so much for this. We thank you. We want to educate the public about this, and so they can, be conscientious, and as they communicate and relate to their representatives, their community stakeholders, that they know about this. It's important, and they want them to make progressive choices in regard to this. And another thing about solar jobs, American solar jobs have increased 167% in the past decade. How many industries can you say that there has been job growth 167% in the past decade, which resulted in 156,000 jobs in a 5-year period between 2014 and 2019? Solar employment has increased 44%. That's 5 times faster than the overall job growth in the U.S. economy. And on the other side of this virus, because there's going to be
post-pandemic
other side to this virus. Yeah, this is gonna, whatever it is, this is gonna come to an end. And so the time and the circumstances will support making these choices more so than ever, and something that's good for us. It saves money, it's good for the environment, as well as creating jobs.
And let's stay right there, Pearl, because that is a huge point of emphasis that I want to make sure that we make is the post-pandemic. So when you tie this into post-pandemic, of course, like we mentioned, there's some 22 million people that are out of work. One of the things that it behooves people to do in terms of taking ownership, because of course you can't control being impacted by the pandemic. What you can control is your reaction to it, and then what do, understanding that this is going to be a shift. Like everything, in life, when we have major events, they create these shifts. Civil rights did, World War II did, all the world wars and all those things create shifts in how interact and do things. One of the things I love about what you said is the skill set that people have today. If we begin demanding this of our leaders, right, and put them in place and hold them accountable to clean energy and going into areas like solar that create jobs and entrepreneurship opportunities, business ownership opportunities, right? If we demand that and then we follow through by getting the proper, whether it's licenses or skills or things like that, you would really see Memphis elevate to a level that very few cities can duplicate because of our geographic location.
Absolutely.
Proximity to things. Memphis would be a extremely booming city. But I love what you said about that in terms of the fact data on the jobs that solar can create, because when you look in Memphis, I think there's a collection of talent that could really work in that solar industry that exists today, or needs very little training, I think, in order to be there. I mean, think of all the people in customer service, all the people that would be in engineering, and all the people in cleanup, all the people in installation. I mean, I'm probably not even doing it justice, because there's probably a long list of
absolutely.
careers. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's lots of jobs, lots of businesses, lots of contracts. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, and and I didn't even get into the contracts. And when you mentioned about that, the contracts with each other, because again, if you're able to harness energy and you're able to sell it, and a market is created from that, that is, not, so much strictly oversaw by the government, but, is more at the grassroots level amongst people. Again, that creates a huge shift culturally in our city. And puts power again to the people. So my guest today, Pearl Walker, with Memphis Has the Power. How can we support the organization, Pearl? How can people get involved? Someone that's listening to this, even if you're not in Memphis, MYB community, and you're listening to this and you're compelled to want to get involved, or you want to, begin, doing this even in your city. How can people connect with the movement? I understand there's a petition that's going around. We want to make sure that people get that. That's actually the link to that's going to be in the show notes along with the website. So how can people get involved, Pearl?
People can get involved by visiting the website, memphishasthepower.org. It's a great website. Everything's there, including the petition. But if you don't know much about this, but you're interested, wherever your level of awareness and or understanding is, this is a great place to start. And if you want to email me, you can email me at memphishasthepower@gmail.com. My phone number is area code 901-289-6909. But start with the website, memphishasthepower.org, and get yourself fed on all things clean and renewable, dealing with energy, but as well as affordable options. And that's where people should start, just by visiting our website. Tons of information. All of the content is simple, easy to read, and that's where people should start.
Yeah, memphishasthepower.org. And again, it's in the show notes, folks. So go there, check that out, connect with Pearl, let her know that you heard her right here on the Minding Your Business podcast. And again, the push, we want to make sure we emphasize this. The push is for clean, affordable energy here in Memphis and then beyond. It's extremely important as we have more devices connected to things. Pearl talked earlier. We plug things in, we go to the faucet, we get water, we flip on lights and all that type of thing. And we don't think about that much as we go through our day-to-day lives. But as again, thinking post-pandemic, of even if just a small percentage of us are working from home more, right? That's going to be more energy being used. Think about if your kids are home and they're doing online school a little bit more, right? That means you're using the utilities more than you would when you're gone, 12 to 14 hours every day from your home, right?
Absolutely. You make a great point. That is a great point. We all are using, I judge we're using more utilities because we're at home more, we're cooking more. Try not to get fat. We're at home more, we're cooking more.
Right.
And so yes, we're using more utilities, and we want MLGW, we want the decision makers and the elected officials to be mindful of these clean, renewable options as they move forward, because they're going to be making some major decisions about this later this year. Currently, MLGW, the arrangement that MLGW has with TVA, they have to give them a 5-year notice. Can you imagine? So,
wow.
So even if we made the change today, before everything would be fully implemented under a new provider, it would be 5 years from now. And so TVA is advocating, they're trying to lock MLGW into a 20-year contract. And we definitely don't want to do that.
No, we don't. No,
if they don't switch to another provider, we don't want to lock ourselves into a 20-year contract. We already have to give them a 5-year notice to break away.
Yeah, and that's insane. A 20-year contract. Come on. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yeah, they need to stop playing. Which means that we as people, we got to make sure we're not playing, and we hold our leaders accountable and let them know what it is that we are asking and demanding of them as leaders to make sure that they represent us properly. But yeah, 20-year, golly, that's insane. 20 years. If we were to do that, I'd scream.
But we're for renewables, solar, wind, all the the latest technology that can afford us this. But that's what we want. That's the best for us, and we want what's best for us, and it is the most affordable.
Yeah,
it's the most affordable.
Yep, absolutely. And so, Pearl, thank you so much for sharing this great information. Shout out to all of you that are on Facebook Live. For those listening to the recorded podcast, I want to shout out some people. Sora Heather Blue, what's up, girl? Brady, what's going on? Tim Smith, good frat. What's going on, man? Jermaine Fletcher out there in North Carolina doing big things in the banking world. Shavandra up in Nashville selling them houses, girl. I see what you're doing. The guest from my last episode, Larvizo Wright with Be Upright LLC, was chiming in too. So, man, shout out to all of you. Shout out to everybody that is checking out this podcast. And make sure, again, you go to memphishasthepower.org. If you're interested in setting up something in your city, make sure you reach out to Pearl. She will help you if you're serious about doing it. Now, if you're just playing and you just want to be seen, that's different.
Absolutely. I'm available. That's 901-289-6909. Memphis has the power at gmail.com. And yes, here locally or even beyond Memphis, and call me and ask me how you can help and get on board because of the virus. So I'm relying on opportunities like this, and thank you again, you did a great job. So relying on opportunities like this. So if you want to interview me live or print or whatever, reach out to me. Yes, definitely.
Please do. Yep, please do. And so we're getting some write-ons, and thanks for sharing and that sort of thing. That's what we want to do here on the Minding Your Business podcast is, we want to be diverse. I want to share diverse perspectives. I want to share great information right from the people that are grassroots on the front lines doing it. And so Pearl, thank you so much. I know you're extremely busy. You've got a lot of things going, as you mentioned, but for you to take time out today to share this information with this audience on behalf of the audience is greatly appreciated, and we thank you. Safe and security for you and your family. If we can be resources, let us know. But again, people, memphishasthepower.org. Go today and then email Pearl and let her know that you enjoyed the information right here on the Minding Your Business podcast. So listen, salute to you, Pearl. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
All righty.
All right. All right, y'all. That was Pearl Walker with Memphis Has the Power. Listen, clean energy is extremely important. Don't let anybody tell you that it's not, man. We go and we do things like Pearl mentioned. We do things without thinking about it when it comes to our electricity, our gas, and our water and that sort of thing. And we probably could have talked for hours on more things, but let's make sure that we support these type of movements, that we become educated on them, and they have great impacts on business. Everything that y'all are doing, from the phone, charging the phone up, to being on a laptop, to having lights turned on, to offices, everything that y'all are doing, that we all do, involves energy. All right. And having it being affordable, having it be streamlined, and having it be safe to us and to the environment is very critical. So Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast, again, subscribe, 5-star on Apple Podcasts, helps us continue to get this out to people. Tell somebody about the podcast. If you want to connect with me, that's Ron at themybpodcast.com. Listen, everybody have a phenomenal rest of your week. We're going to come back with much more here on the Minding Your Business podcast. Go be great. All right, y'all, Facebook Live. Y'all go be great, man. I appreciate y'all jumping in. Share this with your network if you don't mind. One thing also, email me also, Ron at the MYB podcast. Ladies, mothers, mother figures. If you support a young person as a mother figure, or if you've actually given birth to a child or children, listen, for Mother's Day, I'm doing a special edition podcast, a special edition. I want to have a minute and 30-second or less video of you. Send that to me at Ron at themybpodcast.com. I want you to introduce yourself. I want you to talk about your thoughts, your emotions when you first became a mother. And I want you, lastly, to answer what motherhood means for you. And I want to feature that on an episode that'll be released on Sunday, May 10th, which is Mother's Day. And so if you could get that to me by Sunday, May the 3rd, the week before, that way I can have it ready to go for that specific episode. So please do that. Email me, Ron at themybpodcast.com. Listen, I know you hadn't been able to get to your hairdresser and things like that, and you might be concerned about your appearance. Get your appearance together. We're not worried about that. It's Mother's Day, and we want to celebrate mothers. All right. So you don't have to get dolled up with your makeup and all that type of thing. Like my man Gerald says, we want you to come naturally. Champ Ron, the Minding Your Business podcast. Thanks, y'all.